Today I'm going to read to you The Babe and I. This is the book that you hopefully just finished reading. It is a historical fiction book that takes place in 1932, which is during the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a time where many people lost their jobs and didn't have enough money to buy food or to support their families. Today we are going to read a story about a boy and his friend Jacob and what the boy finds out. After I read this to you, and hopefully now that you've read it too, we're going to try to dig in really deep so you can respond to the message of the story tomorrow or today. So The Babe and I by David Adler. For my birthday, I was hoping my parents would give me a bicycle. They only gave me a dime. I was disappointed but not surprised. It was 1932, in the midst of the Great Depression, and millions of people were out of work. We were lucky. My father had a job, but we never seemed to have much money. Where we lived in the Bronx, New York, everyone was poor. Happy birthday, Dad said when I walked him outside. I watched him go off carrying his briefcase and smiling. My neighbor Jacob was tossing a ball and catching it. He threw it to me and shouted, "Give me a high one. I'm Babe Ruth, the world's greatest baseball player." I threw the ball and Jacob reached up. It bounced out of his hands. He was no Babe Ruth. Now, Babe Ruth was one of the greatest baseball players of all times who played for the Yankees, and the Yankees is still today the New York team. We played for a while, and then Jacob said, "I have to go to work. Come with me. We will have a catch while we walk." A few blocks from home, we passed a woman selling apples. Her clothes were wrinkled and shabby. I gave her my birthday dime and bought 2 apples, one for me and one for Jacob. I was glad to be rid of the dime. It reminded me of the present I didn't get. We turned onto Webster Avenue, and there were more apple sellers. Near the corner, I saw a large briefcase, and I looked up, and there was Dad, selling apples like the others. Suddenly, I couldn't move. I'm going to pause. I want you to think, what does that tell us about Dad? If the woman on the other page who was selling apples had shabby clothes and had lost her job, what are we figuring out about Dad right now? You are making an inference. "Come on," Jacob said. I pointed. "Oh," he whispered. "I thought your dad had a job." "So did I, and Mom thinks so too." There were tears in my eyes as I watched people walk past my father. I wished so much someone would buy an apple from him, but no one did. I realized how he had earned my birthday dime, and I was sorry I had spent it. "I have to get to work," Jacob whispered. I was too dazed to know where we were going. I just followed Jacob until we came to a small building. "My, Dad is out of work too," Jacob said as he got into line. "That's why I'm a newsie. Sell newspapers with me, it's fun." I didn't feel like going home, so I stayed with Jacob. We collected our papers, and he said, "Now I'll teach you how to really sell." We walked past the newsie on the corner. "Coney Island fire," he called out. 1,000 homeless. Read all about it." There were lots of people around, but I didn't see anyone buy a newspaper. Jacob and I passed other newsies calling out about the fire. Then we walked beyond busy streets and apartment buildings. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You'll see," said Jacob. We walked until we came to an elevated train station. People were rushing from it to a large ballpark just ahead. "We're here," Jacob said. "That's Yankee Stadium." That's where the Yankees play baseball, friends. I held up one of my newspapers and I called out the headline, "Coney Island fire, read all about it." "No," Jacob said. "No one here is interested in fires." He picked up a newspaper and looked through it. "Here it is," he said. "This is what they want." "Babe Ruth hits home runs," he called out. "Read all about it." "The Babe hits number 25. Read all about it." "Here, I'll take one," a man said, and he gave Jacob 2 cents. "Let me see that," another man said. Jacob was smart. These people were on the way to see a Yankee game. Of course they were interested in Babe Ruth. Jacob and I quickly sold all of our papers. When we left Yankee Stadium, the coins in my pocket made a nice jingling sound. We went back to the small building and paid a penny for each paper we had sold. That left me with 25 cents. Now I'm going to pause. 25 cents doesn't seem like very much to us, friends, but in 1932, 25 cents was worth a lot more. Okay. When I got home, I didn't tell Mom and Dad about the apples, but I told them about my job. She put the coins I had earned in our money jar and said, "Don't say anything to your father about the newspapers. It might embarrass him to know you are helping out." Later, Dad came home and put some coins in the jar. He took off his shoes, stretched out on the couch. "I was really busy at the office today. I'm tired." I wanted to tell him he didn't have to pretend that he still had a job, but I couldn't. I just looked at Dad's briefcase and I wondered what he had in there. The next day, Jacob and I called out about Babe Ruth again. He had his 26th home run. I quickly sold my newspapers. I knew I could have sold more if there was some way to get them to the stadium. When I got home, I searched the basement of our building for a wagon or anything with wheels. All I found were boxes and torn suitcases. Just before I went back upstairs, I saw Mrs. Johnson pushing her baby in a carriage. "Could I borrow that?" I asked. "Why?" she asked. "You don't have a baby." I told her about the newspapers. "I suppose so," Mrs. Johnson said, thinking. "But this would have to be a business arrangement. With my carriage, you'll make extra money, so I should make some too." She offered to rent the carriage to me for 10 cents an afternoon, and I agreed. On Monday, the front page was about a 19-year-old boy who had robbed a telegraph office because he wanted to be arrested. He knew he would get something to eat in jail. Jacob and I didn't call out about the boy. We called out about Babe Ruth. He had won the game for the Yankees with a hit in the 12th inning. Thanks to Mrs. Johnson's carriage, I sold lots of papers. I had 80 cents to give Mom for the money jar. When Dad came home, he gave Mom a bottle of milk and a bag of apples, and I bought the apples from an unemployed man I passed on my way home. "Dad," I said, "that man is not unemployed. Selling apples is a job." "No, it's not," he said sharply. "It's just what you do while you wait and hope for something better." He looked upset. I realized how important it was for him to keep his secret. Now, the word unemployed means that somebody doesn't have a job. If you are employed, you have a job. And we know that the prefix "un" means the opposite of. So unemployed means someone does not have a job. On Tuesday, Jacob and I called out, "Babe Ruth collapses, read all about it." And on Wednesday, "Babe Ruth stays home." He had hurt his leg and doctors told him he would not be able to play for 3 weeks. That night, Dad asked me to walk with him. When we were a few blocks from home, he said, "Today, I saw you pushing Mrs. Johnson's baby carriage. I spoke with her, and she told me about the newspapers." "I'm just trying to help, Dad." He said, "I know." Dad held my hand firmly. We walked quietly for a while. Then Dad asked, "Were you ever on Webster Avenue?" "Once." He squeezed my hand and tears were rolling down his cheeks. "I didn't tell Mom," I said. Dad didn't say anything after that, and I didn't either. We just walked. The next day, Jacob and I were calling out, "Babe Ruth sits with the fans. Read all about it." "Here, kid, I'll take one." A tall man gave me a $5 bill. "I'm sorry," I told him. "I can't change that." "That's okay, kid. Keep the change." I just looked at that money. I couldn't believe anyone would pay that much for a newspaper. Jacob ran to me. "Do you know who that was?" he asked. "You sold a paper to Babe Ruth." In the few pictures I had seen of Babe Ruth, he was wearing a baseball uniform. I didn't recognize him without it. "Wow," I said. "I just sold a newspaper to Babe Ruth?" I kept one hand in my pocket, holding on to my Babe Ruth bill. With the other hand, I sold newspapers and kept looking across the street toward where Babe Ruth had gone. When all our papers were sold, I pointed to Yankee Stadium and told Jacob, "I'm going over there. I need to see Babe Ruth again." I checked the prices and realized I could buy 2 tickets and still have plenty left for the money jar, so that's what I did. The stadium was noisy. Jacob and I walked through a short tunnel and saw a large baseball field. Babe Ruth was in a Yankee dugout with his teammates. When the game started, He stayed there. I guess his leg still hurt. I tried to watch everything, the pitcher, the catcher, the batter, the players on the field, and Babe Ruth. Near the end of the game, the score was tied. The Yankee catcher didn't come up to bat. Out came Babe Ruth. Everyone shouted and waved. I think I cheered the loudest. He paid for my tickets, I told the man next to us. He gave me $5 so I could see the game. The man smiled. I think the Red Sox pitcher was afraid of Babe Ruth would hit a home run. He purposely threw wide of the plate 4 times and walked the Babe. We cheered again as Babe Ruth slowly walked to first base. We knew he couldn't hit a home run every time at bat, but at least Babe Ruth was back. Babe was part of the 1932 Yankees. That was the year that the best team was the best team in baseball. He and I were a team too. His home runs helped me sell newspapers. As I left Yankee Stadium with the coins I had earned, making a nice jingling sound in my pocket, I knew that Dad and I were also a team. We were both working to get our family through hard times. So that is the story, The Babe and I by David Adler. And I want you to think about what the message was in the story. They talked about being a team. Okay, so there are 2 really good examples in the story of teamwork, 2 or 3. So I'm going to be asking you to be writing about how being a team is a theme in this story, and what are 2 examples of people being teams. Thanks, friends.